Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a super fun and super random video for you guys this evening because we're playing the new English translation of Birdcage of Horrors, released by David Pascarella, more famously known on Twitter as Ateam. He's been on an absolute tear recently with translations to Dreamcast, and if you've never heard of this game before, I would forgive you. As far as Dreamcast knowledge is concerned, I'd say 99 out of 100 people would never know this thing ever existed. I had heard about it and tucked it away in that little corner of my brain that keeps useless Dreamcast knowledge. But the amount of work on display here is absolutely staggering. This may be the largest translation project and fan patch I have ever seen. There are 407 different individual videos that comprise Birdcage of Horrors, and every single one of them has been lovingly translated and subtitled so that you can 100% understand the story. Some of the translations came from an anonymous user that sent him over to Ateam, but he brushed up the translation and even wrote a tool to get all of these subtitles into the FMV videos and back out into a Dreamcast format, because trust me, as someone who works in production and my last job as a studio director, manually writing subtitle files is one of the worst things ever. It's a very tricky format with a lot of time codes, and it makes you absolutely hate the entire process. Now, what is Birdcage of Horrors? I'm going to call it a game, but it is in fact definitely not that. This was released on multiple discs that you could get online in Japan, and it basically had a quasi-interactive murder mystery story within inside of it. This was basically kind of, in my opinion at least, an extension of Satellaview, where there were these different releases based on time. You'd grab the new disc and continue the story, and you're going to see here it's all based on a 365-day year, and pretty much every video is right around a minute long. Now, of course, this isn't something that you're going to play. You're going to sit down and you're going to watch it, and you're going to understand the story as it unfolds, even be presented with some mysteries, and you kind of have to think about what might be going on. This, to me, has a very Japanese Twin Peaks vibe to it. If David Lynch moved over to Japan and started directing films there in the 90s for TV, this is kind of what I feel like it would look and feel like. And trust me, that is a very high compliment, at least coming from me. And again, the amount of work on here is staggering. There's a new English language title, there's all English language menus. Pretty much everything here has been lovingly gone over to make sure you can understand it. Even removing the VMU save requirement to open up all the videos on all 6 discs has been patched out, so you can just load these things up and you're off to the races watching one of the strangest and most intriguing things I've ever seen on Dreamcast. And that is why projects like this are so important. I totally understand that this is not for everyone. You're either going to love it or not really understand why it exists. But the fact that Ateam and its collaborators went along with this project and brought it to us is a huge moment for preservation, because these sort of games did exist. They were popular, especially in Japan back in the day, and it's an entire genre of gaming that we really weren't privy to in the United States, because obviously Sega was never going to bring this over to the US with their own subtitles. There really wouldn't be the market. But it is a curiosity as far as Dreamcast era games are concerned, and I love the fact that people have actually spent the time to bring it to you. That is what I'm always advocating for, and sometimes I make videos like this, which I assume not many people are going to watch, just so I can spotlight all this incredible work that the community does. Because if it wasn't for people out there doing things like this, you would never understand what was going on in Birdcage of Horrors. So as far as the effort is concerned here, it is an absolute 10 out of 10. And it would have been fun to be in Japan back in the day, buying these discs on Dreamcast Direct and waiting for the continuation of the story. Think about now how Netflix breaks their own series into part 1s and part 2s to kind of keep you subscribed. It was the same concept then, except you were actually ordering Dreamcast discs on a website and then they would mail them to you. And that is definitely something that I feel like feels infinitely familiar while also completely foreign at the same time. Because in this instance, every single video came out over the course of a year, and that's why you see the 300XX days to go on the videos that I'm showing you right now, because I am just leading you through the intro to this. I don't really want to spoil much, because this is definitely something in your spare time you should just watch. It is very well directed and composed and shot for its era, and the translation here 100% gets over the entire intent. And after I give you the sound sample so you can actually hear the dialogue, I'll talk more about what this game actually is, the content you're watching, and why it is so intriguing. But I wanted to get through the overall translation process first and everything that went into it. But here's your sound sample. Hopefully it doesn't flag, and I'll be right back with more details.
ここに越してきたの？
あ、はい、
脅かしてごめんね。 俺10号室の岩田。職業はこれ。
コンビニ強盗。
なんでよ。
冗談です。プロレスラーでしょ。
そう。リングネームはインモラル岩田。
インモラル。
I mean, if that music doesn't sound like it's from Twin Peaks, I don't know what it would sound like, because that definitely has some Angela Badalamenti vibes going on. And as far as how this was directed, composed, shot, and otherwise, it has a very ephemeral 90s feel, of course, because it was shot in the 90s, but it also has a very Japanese vibe going on with it, because pretty much every country has some sort of regionality when it comes to the overall look and feel of the entertainment that they produce. It's definitely narrowed out a little bit in the modern era, but still today, if you watch a Korean drama, if you watch a Japanese show on Netflix, you can see subtle differences in how the art is actually made. And I'm just talking about this because my background is in film production. I've gone to many years of school for it, so it is something I definitely enjoy outside of making YouTube videos. I kind of just take my skills and pivot them to talk about retro gaming, my other hobby. And again, the story here is intriguing. There's like 10% of cheese to it, but you kind of need that cheesy flavor to overall get you into the story, draw you in, and really make you intrigued, because you start to wonder, why does this woman have 4 different locks on her door? Is this a bad neighborhood? Is she paranoid? You could never quite tell, but if you see, the walls do seem a little bit dirty, so clearly this building is not something that would be on the higher end as far as quality is concerned. So they do give you those little visual clues that maybe the neighborhood and building this girl is living in isn't the nicest place in the world. And I do love that visual storytelling that has been incorporated here, because so often there's these little tiny details that you may or may not notice that cause your brain to form a mental image of the overall story. These are the type of things that we do think about when we are behind the director's chair, we're behind a camera, basically putting in these little tiny touches in the art design department that kind of lead you into thinking what we'd want you to think without having to say it out loud. We want to show you something, we don't want to tell it to you. And that's what this story is doing, at least off the top. It's giving you enough detail to understand the overall story arc, but it really isn't unfolding its cards too quickly. And that was a very smart decision, because if you are basing this on basically an entire year's worth of movies releasing daily, then you do need to have that intrigue. But I do like that as a design philosophy. Imagine going back to your Dreamcast once a day to watch 60 seconds of a video and then just to come back tomorrow. It's this tiny little drip feed of content, and you're probably thinking throughout the day when you get home from work in Japan back in 1999, 2000, you're going to be able to watch the next little installment. And it's interesting, around this time too, David Lynch was doing these little internet pieces, sometimes a minute, 2, 3 long, so it kind of does match up. I know, again, I've basically gotten off a massive tangent here as far as what this video is concerned, but I do love talking about this stuff when I get the chance, and it is rare that I do get the chance on the channel. But I can't stress enough, again, just how much a labor of love this is. Ateam could have translated and basically modded anything he wanted on the Dreamcast. He has the talent to bring us anything. And I'm sure some of you would have picked a game, something different than this to start with, but honestly, I love the fact that this does exist. This is just somebody who loves Dreamcast, who loves bringing fans things, doing a passion project, and so many passion projects in gaming lead to so many more fun things down the line, and this is what Birdcage of Horrors truly is. And now we understand that this girl's talking to this man about why the woman across the hall has 4 different locks on her door. That's going to become very important, because this game, quote-unquote game, does jump off relatively quickly, and you're going to find out exactly what the inciting incident is shortly. But I'm not showing you too much of it. I'm just giving you the first disc here so I can kind of intrigue you and see how many of you might actually want to watch the entirety of this run, because trust me, if you want to do it in a day, it's no different than watching a Godfather movie as far as the length is concerned. It's not a short piece, but it's definitely achievable. And you'll see here she's woken up. You get a little time on the clock there, and I love that clock. Would absolutely love it on my bedside table, one of those like classic 80s designs. And something's definitely going to be going very wrong in just a moment. But before I show you those scenes, let's talk about how you actually play this game. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to Ateam's GitHub page. You're going to find 6 different patches for disc 1 through 6. You're going to go ahead and download those patches, and you're also going to download the patching tool, and consequently apparently also written by Ateam. Just grab the GDI files for these games and go ahead and patch. It is a 2-click process, and then you will be watching these videos. And again, it is so streamlined. Ateam writes a lot of different detail in the GitHub page, especially about the process, which I've tried to cover here decently enough, but there's definitely still some details there about how big of a project this truly is. And then you can take those patch images, you can run them on any Dreamcast emulator, you can run them on original hardware with an optical disc emulator. The only wrong way to play this, quote unquote play again, is to not experience it in the first place. Give it 15 minutes, give it 20 minutes, see if it hooks you in, because for me, it 100% did, and I knew about this game, but of course, last time I checked it out, probably 10-15 years ago, without any English whatsoever, I really had no idea what was going on with this story. Sure, I could infer a few things just based upon the visual language and other cues in the scene, but the fine detail that you're going to really need to appreciate it fully was just locked behind the language barrier. So big thanks to Ateam for doing something like this. And these are the last scenes I'm going to leave you with, because of course this is called Birdcage of Horrors, so birds are definitely going to have to play into it in some way, shape, or form. And I just love these scenes right here. The crow is literally pecking at the neck of a severed headed body. But the question is, if the body without a head is up on the roof, where might that head actually be? That's what they're going to go search for here. Sure, it's a little bit not the most convincing gore effect in the world, and sure, after one person screams, they seem to be 100% fine with being in the presence of a body with no head, but I kind of love that too. It's the same Twin Peaks feeling where people either have these gut visceral reactions to something or seem to be completely vacant-minded in the presence of that same problem, but it is a style and it kind of gives you an uneasy, unsettling feeling. And when they go into the woman's apartment, the one with the 4 locks that we saw before, they're going to draw back this curtain, they're going to see a hose and say they smell gas, and that hose is going to directly lead your eye line up to this blood splatter. And of course, what is hanging from the ceiling? You can take guesses, but I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be right. It is her severed head. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.